Good afternoon to you. Mark Suttoth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for Tuesday, the 13th of June, 2017. We have a lot to talk about today. Nothing really serious developing yet, but things are starting to get a little bit more interesting, so I'm going to take a look at that. We don't have quite as many slides as we had yesterday, as many graphics, but what I do have I think will be pretty interesting, so let's get rid of me, and we'll take a look, first of all, starting here in the eastern Pacific. The remnants of what became Tropical Storm Calvin, third named storm in the eastern Pacific, and the third one to reach meager status. Very, very weak system on the wind and energy scale, although it did certainly bring heavy rainfall across this region, but it still shows once again we have not had a hurricane in the eastern Pacific, and we're still about 2 weeks away from the climatological norm that we should have a hurricane develop somewhere out in this area sometime before the end of the month. And if that doesn't happen, then we're going to start falling behind. And I think it just shows again, with the eastern Pacific being slower than it has been the last few years, and these three systems really struggling, that maybe the Atlantic will pick up the slack. We'll see. That remains to be seen. Speaking of the Atlantic, here in the next 48 hours, nothing going on to be alarmed about. And then at the 5-day time frame, the National Hurricane Center, as of 8 o'clock this morning Eastern Time, indicating about a 20% chance of something trying to take shape down here in the Gulf of Honduras, off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. Now, if we look at the text, they mentioned that a broad area of low pressure is expected to form over the Western Caribbean Sea or Central America late this week or this weekend, with some gradual development of this system being possible. So let's take a look. Remember I talked about this yesterday, that we can kind of play detective here. Let's try to find the pieces that would come together and give us something to track other than a blob of clouds. Will that be in the cards for this system? Well, let's take a look and see. All right, so we go to the upper level winds, and right now in the area that we would be most interested in, at least for most of us, and we certainly have interest here in Mexico, but in the western Atlantic basin here, and in the region that the outlook was issued for, still have strong northwesterly flow, and so the winds are coming out of the northwest here, too fast for anything to develop. Shearing winds, so that's not favorable. So let's move on and look at the vorticity. Now, certainly since this is still several days away, we're not expecting to see much spin or vorticity in the atmosphere. And since this is the area we will be watching, let's see if we get anything developing. Some of this energy, the leftovers of Calvin in the East Pacific, and then just general area of energy trying to develop this sort of monsoon gyre, sort of a large area of counterclockwise rotation going to develop in here, part of this big monsoon trough that's going to set up, and it's not there yet. So we'll be watching to see if we get that rounded appearance in this particular product from the University of Wisconsin site, the Cooperative Institute for Meteorological Satellite Studies. Notice too, out in the Atlantic, we're going to be watching this area. Believe it or not, some of the modeling indicating the possibility of the main development region becoming active in the next week to 10 days. And if we look at the upper ocean heat content, had a suggestion to show this in the comments for yesterday's video. It's a great idea, so let's take a look. The upper ocean heat content tells us more about how much energy is in the ocean, not just at the skin or along the ocean's surface, but deeper down. That 80-degree line, the 80-degree magic number, Fahrenheit, does that extend deep into the ocean? And if it does, the deeper that warm layer is, the more upper ocean heat content is available. And typically anything at the top of the scale up here is really, really high octane fuel for tropical cyclones to take advantage of. And we can see in the Western Caribbean no shortage of ocean heat content right now, kind of in the middle of the scale, but it certainly is prevalent. And you notice too that it's starting to grow up and alongside the east coast of Florida, and even some values creeping in here in the bottom third of the scale off the Carolina coast, and then extending out. This is pretty impressive here. This isn't the 80-degree line, but this is just where we're starting to see deeper ocean water that's warm, I'd have to actually look at a sea surface temperature chart. We'll do that maybe tomorrow or Thursday. But this is just showing the upper ocean heat content, and there's some starting to develop out here in the main development region. And certainly as you get west of 40 degrees longitude there and points west. So definitely growing. But it's interesting, if we look at last year, there was more by this time. See, this is the same time last year, and especially in the Gulf of Mexico. However, you could make the argument that this year, maybe just a little bit more of that upper ocean heat content starting to grow out in this area, but nothing really unusual. No giant departure from what we saw a year ago. Maybe the Gulf of Mexico is pretty different, right? But you know what? It's 80 degrees or higher pretty much anywhere in the Gulf right now. And by August, water temperatures will be plenty warm to support very strong tropical cyclones. You know, it's just a matter of time. All right, so let me zoom back out. I want to show you this. It's hard to believe I'm doing it in June. A pretty good tropical wave coming off the coast of Africa, and some of the global models trying to develop this. Decent moisture with it. I should have pulled up a vorticity chart for this. We'll watch it tomorrow and throughout the rest of the week. This will move on to the west-northwest with time, and it might have a chance to develop. If we look at the GFS model, let me stop this, move you over here, go back to the beginning. So we're going to look at a couple of things here. Remember, we're looking at vorticity. This is the 5,000 foot level in the atmosphere, or about 850 millibars for those following along in the meteorological world. And we're going to watch this area right through here. This is the current map, so this is hour 0, 8 a.m. Eastern Time this morning when the initialization was run. And you can see pretty good southeast flow coming up out of the Caribbean across the Gulf, as pretty strong high pressure, fairly deep layer ridging all across the western Atlantic right now. And as we know, that waxes and wanes with time. So let's put this into motion and see what happens over the next week. This is 7 days worth, so we have 137 images. And what I want you to pay attention to is what happens right through this area here. And then keep your eye on this area over here. Two pieces of energy are going to emerge. The first one is when this monsoon trough starts to set up over here and try to sort of close off into that gyre, that closed large circulation area, and you see it developing there. And then watch here as we get out past about day 6. Look at that little piece of energy coming in there right near day 7. Let's just stop this and take a look at that last frame, all right? So here we are 1 week out, and so 7 days out. Yeah, you don't put a lot of stock into this, but it's not like we're looking at 10 days out, right? Here's this large circulation over the southeast Bay of Campeche. Definitely going to be a big rainmaker, cloudiness and showers, probably a lot of people talking about it, but it's not gaining enough latitude. It's not like it's moving up into the southern Gulf proper, all right? And so unless it does that, it's going to be tangled up over land, and it's really not developing much. In fact, our little wave of energy here has a stronger vorticity signature. Not much stronger, mind you, but it's there. And this comes out of the deep tropics, and this will be interesting to see. Does this get an outlook from the National Hurricane Center at some point? So nothing alarming in terms of the possibility of a tropical storm or hurricane developing in the Gulf or the Bay of Campeche just yet, but it's still several days out, and that week out and beyond is definitely enough of a time frame where, you know, chaos rules, right? And anything can happen. Well, not anything, but you know, you look at it and you say, okay, it's just guidance. And so right now the guidance is sort of, the needle is pointing towards less of an impact from a system in terms of overall punch. Remember, I'm never going to just let rain go. Rain is certainly a big problem, and if it rains a lot over Central America, that can be a big problem, and we'll talk about that as this evolves. But I don't see anything as we just looked together. These are the things that I look for. These are the puzzle pieces that even if I wasn't doing a video update and I was just a guy watching this in my house and not publishing it for anybody, these are the things that I would be looking at. Does it mean that these are the right things, and is this everything? Well, no, you could look at all kinds of stuff. But I like to simplify it. I look at the vorticity and what the models show. Do we even have something there? And we saw it all together, that some of the pieces are there, but it's not quite coming together just yet. So we'll keep watching. Let me move me out of the way so I can get to my toolbar. All right? So there you go. I'll keep an eye on it. I'll be back for the rest of the week as we discuss and see what develops. All right? Other than that, that's it from me for today. I'm Mark Sutter for HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks, as always, for tuning in, and I'll be back with you tomorrow.